Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel for Juls Creations. So we're just coming into the winter season and I wanted my fellow crafters to have time to make these adorable little snowmen made out of socks. Sock snowmen can be used for display at home or office or for collectibles, and they make really great unique gifts. And these are super easy to make and there's no sewing required. Now, a couple things to mention. First, for sanitary reasons, please be sure to always use new socks for this project. And I'll be giving you a few details on the best type of socks to use. And second, these are not children's toys. Although they are not super delicate, they can be torn or pieces pulled off if put in the wrong hands, and potentially a choking hazard. So please only use these for display or gifts for ages 12 and up. Even two snowmen made the same way will have some variation, making each one unique. And when you customize it with your own add-ons, colors, and sock styles, the variations are limitless. So I'm going to show you the basics and then you can customize yours however you want. These are the ones that we'll be doing in this tutorial. And these are a few from last year. So as you can see, each one is similar, but it has its own characteristics. Now here is a list of the supplies needed for this tutorial. And I'm going to just review them first, and then we'll give a little more details on these afterward. So for our work area, we will want a large piece of paper to lay down. I recommend a large piece of drawing paper or maybe some foil. And for each snowman, we will need 1 foot of fabric ribbon, any color. With wire is optional, but it's very helpful to shape the scarf once you put it onto the snowman. And of course, Christmas colors work best for this project. Our nose will be about 6 mm in size, and that can be a small black button or a black flat back pearl cabochon. We'll use 3 medium-sized buttons for the body, any color. For the eyes, we want them to be about 10 mm in size, and they can be 2 black flat back pearl cabochons or 2 black buttons. And now the 10 mm eyes and 6 mm nose, those are what we're using for this tutorial. But of course, you can customize and use whatever size you like. And we want some quilting thread. White is best because we're working with white snowmen. And be sure it says quilting on the spool because the multi-purpose thread will not be strong enough. But once you have it tied correctly, you really won't even see the thread. For the first piece of thread, you'll want about a 2 foot long piece, and just go ahead and set that aside. You'll also want some sewing scissors that are meant for cutting fabric only, some regular scissors to cut through the ribbon if you have wire in it, and to cut through our water bottle, a white fluffy sock, and I'm going to give you more details on the type of sock in a little bit, about 2 cups of rice, the cheapest kind you can find, some E6000 adhesive, optionally a toothpaste roller key, and this can be used to squeeze the E6000 tube easily if it's running out of glue. We also need a toothpick and at least one rubber glove to wear on your hand to prevent the E6000 from getting on your fingers. And then something to close up the bag of rice after we pour it out. So something like a large paper clamp or chips clamp or a twisty tie. And then we also want a clean, empty water bottle. So let's gather up our supplies. And we should have a large piece of paper or foil laid down on our work area. We have our white fluffy sock and a foot of fabric ribbon. For the nose, we want our little black button and 3 colored buttons for the body, any color. Now for the eyes, I can just use black buttons, but I like these to be more three-dimensional, so I use these black flat back pearl cabochons. And I got mine on Amazon, and these came in a set of 7 different sizes, about 6,800 of them for like $8. Of course, you could just use larger black buttons if you wanted. We'll need around 2 cups of rice for each snowman, some sewing scissors because these are meant just for cutting fabric. And I've tried using normal craft scissors. They just don't cut as well on fabric. Now your sock is really important. You can just use a plain white sock, but for this style of snowman, we want it to be really fluffy because we want it to look like a plushie. Now, when looking for socks for this project, I always shop in person, and here's why. You want to stretch out the fabric just a little bit to check how closely the stitches are knitted together. You can't do that from a photo online. If you stretch it out and you see little gaps between the stitching, then when you fill it with rice, the rice will fall through those gaps. So we want to make sure that it's knit really tightly together. And now this ribbon actually has some wire inside it so that we can shape it and it will stay in that shape. and it really helps to be able to shape it once you put it on your snowman, but of course the wire is optional. And we're also going to use a water bottle that's been washed out, and we'll be cutting it to make a funnel for the rice. Most funnels are very small on the end and the rice kind of gets stuck down there, so we're going to make a funnel with a nice wide end. So what we do is cut the water bottle about halfway, and you can use crafting scissors or a razor knife and just cut it again about here, just below where it tapers in. So we'll be using this section here, and this is what you want. It's not perfectly straight, but that doesn't matter. It's just a tool to pour in our rice with. Now you don't have to buy this much. I bought the cheapest I could find from Walmart, and it was like $3 for this whole thing. It'll make about 5 to 6 snowmen. Whatever's left over, we can just use for dinner. So I've got my little baby wipe lids that I glued together. I showed that in another video. And it's just a nice little pocket for the buttons and cabochons so they don't get lost while we're working. And we're going to cut the sock. So take a look at the sock and see where the top of the heel is. And just above where the heel stops curving is where we want to start cutting. And then just go straight across. The sock will then be cut in two sections. The bottom part is for the body of the snowman, and the top part is going to make the hat. And when you start making your own snowman, you can always switch out the hat for a hat from a different sock to give it a little variety. For example, I found this at Walmart today and I really like the colors and pattern, so I thought that might make a really cute hat for the snowman or maybe even the whole snowman out of it. But for the hat, you'll generally also want it to be very soft like a plushie. I also like the colors because the black goes really well with the snowman's eyes and nose, and then I'll use some buttons to complement the red. All right, let's get started. So we're going to find our heel, and just above the curve of the heel is where we're going to start to cut. You're going to cut straight across. And that was pretty easy with the sewing scissors. Now let's set the hat off to the side for now. And we're going to take our little funnel that we made from our water bottle and just slide it into the sock. And so that we don't have to pour this great big bag of rice into a sock, I'm going to just pour it into a measuring cup. And we'll want to measure out 2 cups of rice for each snowman. And you can also use a glass or plastic cup, and we'll be pouring the rice from that into the snowman funnel. And then, of course, after pouring the rice, we want to seal up the package. So you can just twist it and put a twisty tie on it. I'm going to just fold mine over where it's cut and then fold the other side over that and then clamp it. And then we can just set the rice off to the side. So let's take our 2 cups of rice and start pouring it into the sock through the funnel. And when the funnel starts to get full, pinch the funnel and the sock together and lift it up slightly to let the rice drop down. So there the bottom part is almost full, but we still need to add more to the top part. So we want to fill it until it's about 1/4 inch left from the top, and then we pinch the sock and the funnel together again and lift it again and let all the rice drop down again. And then very carefully, we're going to remove the funnel. So grab the top of the sock and lifting up while sliding the funnel out, being careful not to let the rice fall out. And then grab the top of the sock and shake it gently just to make sure all the rice drops down to the bottom as much as possible. We'll be shaping it later. Now we want to close up our sock before the rice falls out, so let's grab our 2-foot long piece of thread. 2 feet was probably an overkill, but it's better to have too much thread than not enough. And first we want the top of the sock to be level, so let's just find the lowest part of the sock and cut it straight across just to level it out, and that'll make it a lot easier to work with while we're tying it up. And take a look to estimate 1 inch below the top, and that's where we want the string to be tied, enough to grab it so it won't slip once we tie it. So find the middle of the thread and place that in the back and wrap the ends around to the front, and then we're going to make a knot. So crisscross the ends to make an X. You see the X? Then you can take one end and push it through that X and then pull it through, and then pull it really, really tight, like that. And then we're going to wrap around to the other side and do it again. So making our knot, making our X, and slide one end through the top of the X and pull it tight again, super tight. And then make a knot, making our X, sliding one end through the top of the X, and then pulling it really tight again. And then of course we'll want one final knot just for good measure. And we're just going to cut the thread off, but leave a little bit at the end. You won't see that because it'll all be covered beneath the hat. Now we want to shape this. So make a circle with your 2 hands and kind of squish it around the middle. but we want the head to be a little smaller than the body. So just continue, and you can use both hands or one hand, whatever feels comfortable. So let's get another piece of thread about 2 feet long. We're going to make our waistline, and just find the middle of the thread, put that in the back, and wrap it around to the front. Make that crisscross to get it started. And this time we're not going to pull it all the way tight. We want it to be more like a belt, just enough to separate the head from the body, about like that. And we haven't tied a knot yet because we want to make sure it's exactly where we want it. So let's wrap it around to the other side again, do another knot. So we're going to crisscross it, take one end and push it through the top of that X and pull it a little bit more tight. Then when we have it exactly where we want it, go ahead and tie the knot. And then again, another knot. And then just cut off the extra, leaving that little bit. So now we have our body and head. And then for our hat, we take this piece and turn it inside out. And then find the edge that we cut, and that's the edge that we're going to want to tie. So we're going to get another piece of thread about a foot long, something like that. We're going to do the same thing we did on the top of the head and just calculate about a 1/4 inch down from the edge. And that's where we want all our string to be tied. So we lay the middle of the thread in the back and wrap the ends around to the front, then crisscross them and pull it really tight. And then wrap it around to the other side and crisscross it. And it's a small piece, so you'll have to kind of hold it down with the side of your hand while your fingers are tying it. So tie it really tight and then make a knot. Wrap it around to the other side again, crisscross and pull it really tight. And this is really strong thread, so you don't have to worry about breaking it. And then just tie 2 more knots, cut off the extra, leaving a little bit. Then when we turn our hat right side out again, we're just taking the edge of the hat and folding it up, and that makes a little rim on the hat. And then we slide our hat onto our snowman, so stretch the hat open a little and then slide it on. And we want the back to reach all the way down to the bottom of the head. And then squish that poofy top down, and you can move it a little here and there till you get the hat exactly where you want it. Now we want to add his face, so let's grab our buttons here. I'm going to lay this down so you can see it. And just to get an idea, we can lay the eyes, the flat back cabochons on here, and then you can kind of see what it's going to look like. So this is where you can try out different buttons and different options while you're experimenting. And we're going to attach the eyes. The reason that I chose E6000 is that the liquid glue will sink right through the fabric, and the hot glue has a tendency to break off with time. But the E6000 is really, really strong, has a little bit of flexibility, and it'll get down into the fabric threads without sinking through. So it'll get a really good grip so that we won't have to sew it on. And I'm going to put on this one glove on my hand. This is the hand that I'll be holding the eyes while I'm putting the E6000 on it. And then I need my toothpick. So we're going to take a little E6000 and squeeze some onto some paper, or you can use foil or whatever. And I always keep the lid on, otherwise it dries out really fast. I'm going to hold the cabochon upside down and grab some of the glue with my toothpick and apply it. And we want to get a nice big blob on there. So this is why I'm wearing gloves. It's important that you get a lot of glue so that it'll get into the fabric and still have some holdability. So place the eye exactly where you want it. And if there's any extra on the edges, just use a toothpick to scoop it off. And then press it gently into the fabric to get a good bond. Now we do the same thing with the next eye, the cabochon. It probably would be better to use the big tube of E6000 instead of these little mini ones. This is just what I had. And again, we put a nice big blob on there and put it in place and press it down. And we're going to do the same thing with his nose. So just place it wherever you think it looks the cutest. And we don't do the mouth because we're just going to cover that with a scarf and that would just get in the way. So we'll do the buttons on the body. 1, 2, 3. And you can use any color, any size, however you want to assemble them. I like to put the larger buttons at the bottom and the smaller on top, but you can do them any way you like. In my own preference, I like to always include at least one red or green button to make it more Christmassy. I'm getting some more E6000. And actually, I'm going to start with the middle button and place it right in the middle of the body, and then I know how much room I have above and below it. Another big blob, smack in the middle, and then we'll try to align it with our nose, wherever you think it's going to look cute. Then we want the bottom button about the same distance apart. All right. And then one more time, just make sure that everything is secure. And we want the glue to dry for about maybe an hour. And then after that, we'll go ahead and finish up our snowman. So I'll be right back. So while our white snowman was drying, I decided to go ahead and use that red sock and make another snowman. Now, I'm not going to go over that whole process a second time, but I did want to show you the hat. I did that a little bit differently and it came out really nice. So let me show you a variation for the hat. I'm not going to turn it inside out this time. I'm grabbing my thread about a foot long. And again, we're starting at about a 1/4 inch from the edge. That's where we want to tie it. And see, even with the thread being white, you really can't see it. So just pull it tight, flip it over, pull it tight again. Once you think it's as tight as you can tie it, tie the knot. And then a second knot. And just to be safe, we'll wrap it around and tie one more knot on the other side. This is kind of cute with this ruffly on the top. So I'm going to fluff it up a bit. We do need a way to stop it from fraying though, so I'm going to trim it up a little bit and then I'm going to use a little bit of clear dry glue. So just take a little bit and pour that into my palm and just going to smear it around a little bit and work the glue into the top edges of the thread. And then when it dries, it'll be clear, but it won't fray and it'll still be all poofy. All right, I'm going to go wash my hands and I'll be right back. So I'm back, and while the hat is drying, I'm going to go ahead and fold it up like this so that it makes a rim. That was just a variation that I wanted to show you. So now we're going to put a scarf on our snowman. This ribbon is pretty wide, so I'm going to fold it in half before putting it on. Before you put it on, you want to decide if you want it to hang down on the left or on the right or in the middle. I'm going to make this one hang on the left, so we're actually going to start on the opposite side. So start with the middle of the ribbon, just wrap it around that side of the snowman's neck, and you'll want the two ends of the ribbon to line up. And now when we tie our knot in the ribbon, we need a little extra slack on that back piece. So we're going to slide this so that the back piece is a little longer. So take the back piece and pull it forward so that it's under the front piece, and then wrap it up and over the front piece with the end facing upward, and then back down through that opening in the scarf and pull it. Now we can adjust our scarf and our face and the body, little here, little there, till it looks exactly how we want it. And you can bend the scarf to lay it out how you want it, or open it up, or twist it around, or whatever you want to do. This edge is a little bit long because it hits the floor, so I'm going to trim it. And you'll always want to cut the edges at an angle so that they come to a point. I'm just trimming this little wire sticking out here at the end. I'm going to fix his hat, just tucking it in down lower in the back. You can shape it how you want. If you want him to be short and fat or tall and skinny, just use your imagination. Now this is the red and black one that we did, and I made the scarf short to give it a little different look. And while we're waiting, I did one more, and I mixed the black and red hat with the white snowman. And now these three are very different snowmen, and they each have their own character depending on how the eyes and nose are put together, or how the face is, and how tall the hat is, and so on. So here are our finished fuzzy snowmen. So there are several ways that you can make your snowman different. You can add more or less rice to change the size of the snowman. You can squeeze the body short and fat, or stretch it tall and slim. You can use different colors or types of eyes. You can use different colored or different shaped buttons. You can use different ribbon for the scarf. You can use different Christmas printed socks. Some may have plaids or stripes or blue snowflakes even. You can vary the hats in style, height, and colors. You can add glitter onto the buttons before gluing them on. And I'm sure you can think of a lot of creative ways to make your snowman unique. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, please give a thumbs up. And if you have any questions or video ideas, be sure to leave a comment below. And subscribe if you'd like to be notified when I release any new videos. If you'd like to support my channel, you can buy me a coffee below. And a big thank you to my subscribers. I appreciate you. And there's also a link to all of my Jules Creation links that you can check out. Enjoy and never be bored.